Welcome, 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 everyone, to the Women's Empower Network. I am so excited to have Carrie here with us today. So, welcome, Carrie.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today, Jenny. I had so much fun preparing, or actually, I'm going to say listening in to what Spirit wanted me to talk about today.
Well, that's exciting. That's funny you say that too, because I'm having this feeling that we've met before, but I don't know that we have. You just feel real familiar to me. So, this doesn't get to happen very often. So, I think this is going to be really fun.
Oh, yes, we're going to have fun. This is interesting. I see that the name that you have on your screen. Tell me more about that. Soul Ali.
Yeah, Ali, and Ali short for Alethea. So soul is, the unseen, the hidden, our spirit. Alethea is truth. So it's the truth unseen. And it's, taken me a lifetime to trust and to allow my inner guidance to direct my life. I ask it every morning, what inspired action can I take today? What would be in the highest and best good for everyone concerned today? And because I can tell you, I spent a lifetime thinking Ginny, knew better. Didn't always work out so well.
Yeah, I call the difference between my will and thy will, right?
Yes. Exactly. So, but this interview is this is about you. So, my first question always is a little bit, if you could tell us a little bit about your story and journey that's led you to what you're passionate about today.
Okay. Which part of this do I want to share with you today? Um, so first of all, I have to say I can totally relate to your acknowledgement that there's this desire to follow, let's call it the divine universe guidance, and yet there's been a pull in the opposite direction for me too. And I think I'll just say for me, it's been about leaning in to my feminine intuition. And so I think that's the part of the story that I'll share with you. I have been a seeker since I was young. I was the girl that was on the beach reading Psycho-Cybernetics. Have you read that book?
Yes, I have.
My friends were oogling the boys. I was, sitting there reading this book because I wanted to be able to, I don't know, understand human beings and why we lived in such a crazy, crazy world. And it wasn't until later that it's almost like it was a sense of amnesia. I was in corporate. And I think you have a background in corporate too. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Yeah. I was in corporate. So straight out of college, I went to be a human resource manager and made my way to being an HR, a VP of HR. And I wasn't listening to my body. And I was working 60 to 80 hours a week and thinking that was success. And it wasn't until I got so exhausted I couldn't get myself off of the couch. In other words, the universe had to whack me on the head to say, pay attention, right?
Yep.
Where I, where I said, okay, I'm paying attention. What is it that's calling to me? And in a meditation similar to what I use with my clients, it's HeartMath. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
So I access the wisdom of our heart space to be able to say, so what is it that's calling me? And I got in this vision that I was to go back to school for an advanced degree in psychotherapy. So it wasn't any degree. I wanted to be in transpersonal psychology, the concept of being like human development, like human potential, actually, taking it to the next level. So I got a degree in somatic psychotherapy, which means basically tapping into our body's wisdom, which is kind of interesting, thinking about the fact that I wasn't paying attention at all to my body before, right?
Now
And
you're
then,
going to get a degree in it.
yeah, I'm going to get a degree in it because I guess I didn't have that part figured out, but only to realize that that wasn't what I wanted to do to be a sit-down psychotherapy. So I went back for more training in energy work. But that means that you actually have to, how do I want to say, trust your inner knowing. And it wasn't until 2016 that I came out as an intuitive. And I say come out because it really did feel like I was hiding a part of myself. And now I get to marry the two in the work that I do to help women. I call it midlife reinvention alchemy, to begin to transform the for them, for we can all see God's breadcrumbs along the way that have led to what is the next thing that I'll call it your soul's calling. That's why I love the name of what you were saying is your give. I'll say your given name, right? The one that you've created for yourself. Beautiful. So it's really about
It
helping. Go for it.
Now, I was going to say for just to for clarity for the audience listening who don't know what heart math is, do you mind taking a moment and explain a little bit of what heart math is for our audience?
Oh, yes. So it's a body of, yeah, thank you. I love that. So it's a body of work that they've actually scientifically validated how when we come into our heart's wisdom, like even just taking a deep breath right now, putting your hand over your heart, and I ask people to put your hand over your belly and taking a deep heart breath into your heart space. And I invite people, or women in particular, that's who I work with, is I invite them to think about a time in their life when they felt a deep sense of love and appreciation, like a deep sense of nurturing. And that could be from like a special someone, an animal companion, or even a sacred place in nature. And then I just invite them to come into their heart space and to breathe from that space. And from that space is a huge amount of wisdom that flows through that we can't get from just addressing, asking questions from our brain, right? Yeah, I know you've experienced that. And so I use that as a tool over and over again. And I think the other piece I just want to share, it creates, when we're in our heart space and we're really activating that, it creates a toroidal field, which is this big, what do we want to call it? Like a big tire around us. So we begin to magnetize and shift the energy around us into a more elevated state. And I have experiences of that too, if you want to go into it, but I'll call it manifestations of really love in action.
It's beautiful. Well, you want yes, please, absolutely. We like to go deep here.
Okay, let's do it. So I can just remember, I'm trying to figure out which story I might want to share with you. Okay, I'll just say this one. So my first husband and I, we would go traveling all around, and we would go skiing, and so we would travel as a family. So we would have my mother there, my grandmother, my aunt, my uncle, my cousins, and so on. And the guys and I would go out skiing. Well, my aunt was in a lot of pain, like constantly. So, as with people who are in pain, she just really wasn't a lot of fun to be around. Kind of edgy. There's words for that, but anyway, edgy. Um, and so I was just like, oh my gosh, we're going to be together for the next 10 days. How are we going to do this? And so I began to do heart math whenever I was feeling angsty around her, when I was feeling when I was feeling like I needed to be defending myself, or I just couldn't hear the negative stories. And what's interesting, and this just takes less than 5 minutes. So I'd go to my heart space and I'd actually get out of the room so I didn't have to hear the yang, yang, yang. But again, so again, I'm not in the same exact living room space that the rest of the family is, but I'd go back to the bedroom and I'd do a meditation. I would basically go to my heart space, then I'd come out. Interestingly enough, she began to shift. She was much kinder. She was much more compassionate. And I don't know if her pain started shifting or what, but it was a tangible shift from what was a very negative situation into a very loving, connected situation.
That's beautiful. And a lot of people might think, oh, that was just a coincidence, but we are just I think, on the precipice of understanding how powerful we are, that we were born creators. We just been duped into thinking that something or somebody outside of us had authority that we had to get permission from. And so I love where this story is going and this unfoldment.
And it's so perfect what you just said, because when I tuned in to what, because I have a number of talks I do, but I was tuning into what is it that I really wanted to say today. And it was having how important it is for us to have a sense of sovereignty. And that's the tuning in to our own authority, our connection with source. Because I think you talked about being duped. And when we were, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, there were all these fairy tales about when the Prince Charming comes, or right, all of these outside sources are going to what? Make us more valuable, make us whole, all of that. But instead, I'm rethinking about the stories that we grew up with, which is interesting that they feed that to children, because you probably know this too, is that the first 6, 7 years are when we're forming our belief patterns. So whether they're a story or not, we absorb it. And so the fact that we've basically been given the story that we're incomplete unless we have a partner or a man, because it's always the woman that's needing to be rescued or something. And it wasn't until I dealt with my own really difficult situation, financial betrayal in my first marriage, where I began to realize our partners, it's not their responsibility to take care of us. I mean, it's yes, the friendship, the partnership, and all that, but ultimately, it's not their job to make sure that we're happy. And and often we would look at, well, I know early on I did, as companies were supposed to take care of us. We all know where that leads, right?
Yeah.
And and then so I began to realize, as a kind of like as a rebel or a counterculture, how important it is for us to be in our own power. And so that's what I help with. It was like, dial it back in. What is it that you need? What is it that you want? And some people would say that's selfish. And I say, but if you can give from a full cup, then how much more joyous that is.
It is. And I am so excited to be having this conversation with you. And every time it comes up, because we're we're changing the collective consciousness with
Mhm.
this conversation. And it's like, I know you understand this, that we don't change it by pushing against it. We change it by making it obsolete and starting a whole new conversation. And
Mhm.
especially, like you said, from 0 to 6 or 7 is having that conversation with our children, um, so that they can pay it forward. It's just, I think it's an exciting time. I, you know, I wish, I wish people understood. I wish women understood that all the scary stuff that's happening in the world, it's just the old system. It's pushing back, it's making noise because it knows it's at the end. It
Mhm. King
go.
screaming, right? It's interesting that you talked about this, because they say that it's the end of a 2,000-year cycle, end of a yuga, right? And that ability for us, what I've been teaching now that I think about it, is working through, I said, everything is in service to your growth and for your highest and greatest good. So what if all of that stuff that's pissing you off, my mom would laugh if she heard me say pissing. But with all that stuff that's just repulsive is actually pointing to what it is that you do want, like respect for humanity, a sense of compassion, a sense of love, a sense of, I'm just speaking from my own self. I really feel like in my optimum world is that we have a sense of elevating consciousness, so that the actions that we take impact the whole in a positive way and elevate consciousness. And I know that's part of your, let's call it, mission as well.
It is. So it brings us back full circle to when you were explaining and talking about HeartMath. When we come from our heart, it has a rippling effect that affects everything and everybody from within. So it's definitely not selfish to come from a place of inner love and admiration and respect for oneself, that can expand out. I love the work that you do. So how did you go, just, because there's a lot of women who are in corporate life and do want to become entrepreneurs and answer this calling. How was that transition for you for being a VP and HR and corporate world to being this extraordinary woman that you are today?
Oh, thank you, Jenny. It's been a journey. I think it's been, and I didn't come to this position. Uh, Let me say, I came kicking and screaming kind of a situation, right? That concept of my will versus thy will, and even coming to this call today, um, was asking the question. I was asking just to have fun, like, how can I make more money? And I got from my guides, that's the wrong question. So I'm going to ask you a question in just a moment. They said, how can you experience more connection, more joy, more heart, your heart's desire and serve with joy? And I was like, oh, I get it. Thank you. So how did I make that happen? Is first of all, my body wouldn't allow me to go back to doing that. I couldn't do that. And so I had to begin to dream like, okay, so I needed to stay in the workaday field. So what is it that really was calling to me? And this was interesting. I was sharing this on a call yesterday, a juicy aliveness call. And what I found was listening to my heart's wisdom. And even when I didn't know how I was going to do it, I understood the what. I'll give you an example. So I'm a dream builder. I was trained by Mary Manon Morrissey, and she gave me or made an offer to the crowd or whatever. I went to a Dream Builder symposium, and it was for five at the time it was $5,000 to to be part of her training program. And I thought, I don't know where I'm going to get $5,000. So I told my then husband. He says, "Well, I don't know if we can afford it." And I said, "No, I'm not asking. Can we? I'm doing this." So it was a matter of committing. Like I knew in my soul that this was part of the program. This was part of the step, the God's breadcrumbs. I wouldn't have called it God's breadcrumbs at the time. I think I would have just said it was like a push, right? And so you just take the step that's in front of you. And that was the step that was in front of me. And then somebody said, you're spending a fortune paying me to do your energy work. Why don't you learn how to do it? And then she got mad at me because she said, "How is it so easy to you?" And I said, "Because I've been training for this work since I was a child. I just didn't know I was." Right?
I
Isn't that what
love it.
it is? So often it's trusting the fact that who we've been all along is, and that's maybe one of the things that I help women to see is their unique way in which they view the world, and also the what they've already been doing is part of what their next iteration is going to be. But it takes courage and it takes
It,
faith.
and that's part of, one of the missions with this group. I came from a military background. So all of my spiritual exploration and that inner conversation that has always been there, children were to be seen and not heard.
Mm-hmm.
I was groomed as a Jap to be of service to men, a Jewish American princess, to set tables and do all this. And yet I was born a tomboy. And so I kept quiet. And that's why my sub thing, unleash your inner voice. It's so many of us were or are in environments that don't allow us to talk about who we really are. And I'll just use the word, these mystical experiences that we're having, these inner knowings, these connections and observations, these synchronicities that happen to us. And we notice them, but we don't have anybody to talk to. Um, so that's what I love about what's happening now with your group and my group and hundreds of other new groups. It's a place for women to come out and own that authenticity of who they've always been and who they were meant to be.
I love the word that just stuck for me, what you were just saying is I was groomed. In fact, I was like, like, so was I. Because it sounds almost like it was um, a pre-programmed thing. And I'm sure our parents thought that they were doing us a service, right?
Right, right.
And yet, ouch. Yeah, I would say it's two things because I noticed something as I was coming out in my intuition and knowing things and seeing things, even though I didn't have the empirical information. There's, I think it's probably the medical model or there's in our system that has said it's only real if you can see it or touch it, right? And yet
Right.
energy at our core. So that ability for us to use our sensory awareness, our perceptions to filter through the pieces of information. I remember my mom asking me, she goes, honey, I just don't understand what you do or how you do it. And I said, Mom, it's like a radio station. I'm just dialed in to the radio that like the tuning, like I don't know how radio waves work, do you? She goes, no. And I go, and I don't know exactly how all this works either, but there's this information that's there. And when I tune in to an individual or a group, I get images, I get, well, all of it actually. Sometimes it's just dropping in a packet of knowing, or sometimes it's a song or a quote. Yeah. How do you perceive? How do you get your information?
It's different. Sometimes it's just a complete, like a packet of information. So it just becomes an instant knowing. Sometimes because Spirit knows I love to write, it comes an essay. And so it comes out in the written form. But it's just kind of, and sometimes it's just it's like a aha thought that just pops in my head that I know is not of my personality.
Hmm, that's interesting. So, yeah, then I guess I get the question because I'm thinking I might change how I prompt some of the things for my clients because some of us are more auditory, some of us are more visual. And then I guess a question for you. I know you're questioning me, but I would just kind of
I know, right?
how do you know to trust it, the messages?
The School of Hard Knocks.
Uh,
It was years and years and years of it saying things to me. And I'm like, no, 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 I'm going to do this. And it's telling me, no, you don't want to do this. Oh, yeah, 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 it'll be fine. When I did that, I ended up going into business with somebody who couldn't give me the rights to the business. I used all of my life savings. I ended up going to bankruptcy. I lost my home. My children were little. And to this day, that was the most stressful experience I ever had in my whole life. And it was not because I couldn't hear what was being said. And it was louder than normal. And it was every day, every day. And I thought Ginny knew better. So
oh,
when I say the School of Hard Knocks, I'm trying to save young women from going to that extreme. It is not necessary. So yeah, so I had to. So that's how I came to trust it, and it came in phases. It didn't happen overnight, all at once, because then I had to start testing it. Well, you're saying this. How do I know this is so? So then I would be like the investigator, and I went through that phase. To now, it's like hands down been around the sun enough times that when it says don't, I don't. When it says do, I do. If it gives me an idea, no matter how ridiculous it feels, and I may feel silly doing it, I do it.
yeah,
But it took a lifetime of building that trust. It just did.
I can totally relate to what you're saying about getting whacked over the head. I'll,
Yeah,
I'll share what
please.
happened. Go for it.
Sure, but I just want to say, women, please, if you are hearing an inner calling to that, maybe you're in a relationship that you should not be in, please, 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 listen to it. It has your back. It has your highest and best good for you. So please, Carrie, share your story.
Dovetailing, it's almost as if you had set it up. So I was going to say, this was a story when it must have been about 2015 or no, it was 2016. And I was in a long-term marriage and I knew something was wrong. And I'd ask, okay, is it infidelity or I said like sexual infidelity? And I got, no, it's not that. So I was like, I'm a bright woman and I'm intuitive. And I was like, okay, and I'm not able to put my finger on it. So I said to the universe, show me. And at the same time, I was putting together a retreat to Sedona. So a small group of women. Luckily, I was going with one of my dearest friends to co-facilitate the whole thing. And I got, from the moment started planning all this, it is the wrong time. And I thought there's nothing that's showing me, in the physical form that this was the wrong time. Well, the day before we were going on the retreat, I get a notice from the IRS that somebody had stole a social security number, and so it kicked back our IRS. But in the meanwhile, it showed a debit of $90,000 on there, and I didn't sign that document. And so I said, "So what's going on?" He says, "Oh, don't worry about it." And I said, "No, we're talking about it." So what I was finding is there was financial betrayal and it had built over a number of years. And so universe said, I said, okay, what is it? It showed me. And then I had to make the decision what to do with it. Do I stay in this marriage or do I try to see if we can fix it and try to give it a chance? It wasn't working. And I said, rather than allowing my life and my children's lives to be flushed down the toilet, I pulled the plug. It took a couple years, but we have an inner knowing, and it's just how. But show me, and I've actually been saying lately, surprise me, and I have some other manifestations about that. My newest home being one of them. You know how we can be disappointed, like it's not what we want, and yet show me what that looks like. And the universe shows us in some really interesting ways.
It is. It's such, isn't it? It's a fun journey when you get to this place of trust.
Mhm.
Then life becomes fun. And it not to say that there aren't lessons, there aren't ups and downs, but because you've been through the trenches, I think, you're going to be fine. It's for it's happening for you, not to you. And you're like, so what's the silver lining for out of this?
Remembering to ask that though, because our ego can go, dang, I really wanted that. I wanted it to look like that.
I don't know. That reminded me. I can't. I've always wanted to learn the word like a magician in training, and I always wanted to say a Minerva, because I'm thinking of Mickey Mouse. With he had the magic wand, and then the water started coming, and then he couldn't make it stop, and it was flooding the room. Um, I think about that in my younger lives, so like when I was learning to use the magic wand, when I was realizing that I was the creator and sorry about that, and that I was the creator, but then it didn't look like how I saw it in my head. It was kind of clumsy and things were misfit, you know and now it's like, wow, that's better than I could even imagined, because I stepped back and I let it, like this group a year and a half ago. I thought I was growing this group so I could build my coaching practice. I haven't done 1 ounce of official coaching because at 3 weeks I was like, oh shoot, this is way bigger than me.
Yeah.
And then the next thought was, oh shit, I'm a leader. What does that mean? I had to get comfortable with what that meant. Really, for me, it just meant be me because I was just meant to do this. It's as comfortable as putting on my favorite shirt, um, and owning it. But if you were to told me ahead of time that this is what my calling was and this is what I was going to do, I probably would have given you every lame excuse I could think of. Like, no, that's not me. No, I'm not good enough to do that. No, right? Who would listen to me? All those things. And I know we all do this at one time or another.
And yet, I'm guessing you have had God's breadcrumbs along the way. Like, who am I to be a leader? And yet, my guess is just based on our conversations today, you've had opportunities throughout your lifetime to be a leader. Whether you were branded a leader, you were a leader.
It started all the way early in 10th grade.
Yeah.
It started that early and I resisted it. It takes way more it takes way more effort and energy to resist your calling than to just surrender to it and get the support you need. But so let's get back to, so so you're doing this heart math, and you've stepped into and you were doing these events, it
Mhm.
sounds like, um, for women. Tell us more about these things, that these workshops and these and what you do today.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch the next chapter, I call it. Up until recently, oh, yeah, okay, I'm just going to talk about this. So, up until recently, I was doing business coaching and career purpose coaching. And then I began to realize my mom passed away. And I was asking myself, so what is it really? What's my legacy? Right? I just turned 60. And at that time, I was 59. And I began some soul searching. And that's where I think I came up with the midlife uh, reinvention, the alchemy, because, and I realized, so what is, oh, and then I brought in part of the work that I do is I bring in human design. Are you familiar with human design?
I am very much so, yes.
Yeah, so just for your listeners,
Right.
the shorthand is it helps you to understand what your energetic blueprint, who you were born to be. So I've been bringing this in, not as I'm not a practitioner of human design, but I bring in a practitioner, and for example, I'm a manifester, and I know that I'm here to I'm not here to ask for permission. I'm here to inform. I'm like the queen archetype, but the benevolent queen archetype. And it also means that I'm not supposed to be acting like a generator, and which means that I'm not supposed to be trying to do everything. I ideate and I lead. And so with that knowledge, and I'm designed to be a spiritual leader and have groups. And I didn't even realize this really until just recently. I knew the spiritual leader part. So what I like to say is I help my clients to, let's see if I can use like a little prop to like, if this is a diamond, to like polish their God spark, right? To be able to see their divinity within. And so I have a couple different ways in which I do that. So one is a nurture radiance, be unstoppable weekly support to help people. I like to say success is as easy as one, two, three. First, getting clear on your intentions. This is manifestation too, your intentions. The second is removing the roadblocks. And often it's the worthiness piece, or it's the welcoming piece, or it's not supposed to look like that piece, right? Any number of things. So I do energy work that taps into actually deeply seeing and transforming, clearing the patterns that have kept them stuck. And then the third is taking inspired action, because just thinking about it isn't going to make it so, right?
Right.
So that's Nurture Radiance. And then I also have a program, a longer program where I do VIP days and also 6 months of coaching called Be the Queen of Your Destiny, that helps women to reimagine, reinvent what it is that they want to be doing. And I may start using that word groom. I was using the word programmed, that you've been programmed to be a people pleaser, to feel like you're not enough. Where in reality, you have all the resources you need to move forward. And then I help unpack the programming, the grooming, as you call it, that has kept them stuck, not shining their light, not being their fully self-expressed self, and asking for what they need, so that they then can feel like, oh, dang. like Pandora's box opens up, right?
Right.
Like it's okay to have wants. It's okay to have needs. It's okay to voice what I want. But because like you, I was programmed to be the good girl. Don't rock the boat. Don't talk about the elephant in the room. Because I was also raised by a father who was an alcoholic. So that's kind of like the way that that runs too. We don't talk about it, the thing that's in the room. And so I guess that's what I am. I'm a catalyst. We talk about what's in the room.
That's beautiful. I can just feel your heart, and I just feel, because that's what I do too, I guess. It's I can feel the service that you are to women. And if anybody listening today can really resonate with what Carrie's saying, and you're in that place and you're kind of stuck and you're in your head, because that's typically where we go to try to get answers, and that's not quite the right place, then I highly suggest reaching out to Carrie, and we'll be sure to put her contact information in the comments below so that you can connect with her and, have a conversation with her and see if you're a fit for each other, and her programs and what she's doing.
Thank you, Jenny. And I'm just going to say also for your listeners, if anybody is interested in actually like checking things out, I invite people to come into the Nurture Radiance Be Unstoppable program for a month just to kind of check it out, see if this vibes. So, for example, last week we were doing an abundance activation. We do these each month, and it really helps people. I'm trying to think of what we were dealing with. Oh, I'll just say this because it came through. The affirmation that we had last week was, I feel loved by everyone around me. And let that sink in. And I said in parentheses, even if they are not artfully loving us, right? I am loved by everyone around me. And that, because the women who came we had people from Australia and East Coast and West Coast. And it was all about feeling a deeper level of financial security, health and well-being, that full self-expressed confidence and strength. And we can begin to transform these like that. I think that's why I do more energy work than I do, like maybe that's why sit down psychotherapy was not where I wanted to be. Because I felt like you don't have to talk about all your trauma. You don't have to talk. I mean, in some cases, yes, I get how this could be transformative in that way. But in the what I'm noticing is we can transcend intergenerational patterns of, I'll call it thrival or survival, excuse me, rather than thriving.
It is. And that's what's exciting, and having that deeper understanding today than we did even 10, 20, 50 years ago. That's why I'm so excited about what's happening. So before we go today, is there any parting words of wisdom you would like to share with us?
Hmm. I think really that it's our responsibility to awaken and align so that we can polish our God spark. Again, if we continue to wait for someone else to do it for us, we are that which we're looking for. In fact, I have it, you can't see it because I have the boat here instead, but I have Gandhi's quote behind me where it says, be the change you want to see in the world. And I really think that that's my ultimate message is allow yourself to be that spark, that God spark, because not something outside of you is going to come to rescue you, basically.
That's beautiful. Well, Carrie, I can't thank you enough for being here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenny. I so appreciate the work that you're doing in the world to elevate consciousness and bring women into a place of knowing their truth, expressing their truth.
It is, and it takes each one of us owning our own as the example and lighting the way for the others to follow.
I love that. I love that. I get this image of like a circle of light that is basically making it safer for all of us to find our truth.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I know we could, I can feel it. We could just keep going and going and going. But for the sake of everybody's time, we will save it for another day.
Thank you. Blessings.